Hello everybody. So today we are going to learn about a very important topic, transport management system. So why transport management system? So if you see within the R3 system landscape, customizing and development changes are performed in the development plan. As in my previous topics, I told about the system landscape, right? We have a three system landscape. One we call a development, quality, and production. So in the development system, what the functional consultants will do, they will do the customizing and development changes. So once they do all those customization, then they will create a transport request number. With that transport request number, you as a SAP basis consultant has to transfer that transport request to quality, and then you need to import it into the production. So SAP R3 usually enables user to record changes to a change request, which is distributed to other clients or other R/3 systems. So in a company, if you have more than 3 system landscape, then you need to add those systems into your domain controller. So we are going to learn each one by one. This is very important. So that's why I want to give a concept and terminology about transport management system. So here there are two important things: change request and task. So whenever the development functional consultants done with their work, they will release the task, and then the team lead will release that request. So basically the change request and tasks provide a complete history of all changes made during the implementation. Now for this you need to configure TMS. So after the SAP installation, configuring TMS is the first post installation activities, right? And if TMS is not configured properly, that is inconsistent, then we may not be able to create transportable change requests. So after the SAP installation, we have to configure the TMS for the following reason. For what? To create transportable change request, to import the transport request from development to quality, to set up the global transport system between R/3 systems, and to transport clients between R/3 systems. So the R/3 change management system, we call it as a change and transport system, CTS, provides options for data transfer between and within the R3 systems. So CTS is a tool which is used to transport, tune and test customizing settings between systems and clients. Using transport requests and customizing settings, development work created in a separate development can be automatically recorded in change request and then transported into quality assurance client and finally into the production client. So once the change request has been released from development, that is from the source system, it becomes a transport request, right? So the concept of TMS is what? That you need to be very familiar about the transport layer, about the transport routes, consolidation routes, what is delivery routes, and change request, what kind of change request. Okay, so this is very important. Now let me go to SAP system. So the transaction code which we use for transport management system is STMS. STMS. Once you hit enter, you will see that after the installation, the domain controller is already been configured. And if you see, if you go to overview and if you click on systems, because in a company you want to see whether it is a three system landscape or whether it is a complex system landscape, you have to go to overview and select system. Okay, now here you can see how many systems are there. There are 3 systems. That means this is a 3 system landscapes. So you can see the overview of those systems. Like basically if you go to transport routes, you can see these 3 systems. This is the development, this is quality, and this is production system. So once the customization is done, it will import into the quality and then it will deliver it to the production system. So when I was talking about the transport layer, what is this SAP and ZNSP? Nothing but the layers which are going to QS. So what is transport layer? Transport layer is used for grouping all the development objects that will always use the same transport routes within the same development system. Transport layer are assigned to all the objects that conform a specified development system. So this is a central concept for the TMS and is a requirement to create a transport layer before any development project can start. So before any project, you have to create transport layers of basis consultant. So what about the transport routes? So these are the transport layers, ZNSP and SAP. So transport routes are nothing but, if you see the green line which is indicating from NSP to QS and from QS to production. So transport routes are used for defining the different routes that exist between 2 systems within the same system group. So there are 2 types of transport routes. This route from NSP to QS, that is from development to quality, we call it as a consolidation route, and from quality to production we call it as a delivery route. So consolidation route link a source system, that is development, such as the integration system, within a target system such as consolidation, that is quality assurance system. Every consolidation route is assigned to a transport layer. So when you're creating a transport route, that has to be assigned to the transport layer, which is SAP and ZNSP. Delivery routes are used for linking a source system such as quality assurance system with the target system, that is production. The delivery routes are not assigned to a transport layer, but every object that arrives at a consolidation system where the consolidation route, that is also the source of a delivery route. Okay, so this is what a 3 system landscape looks like. Now, when I am talking about a change request, a change request is nothing but a list in the system containing the objects to be transported and information on the purpose of the transport, the transport type, the request strategy, the target system, right? A change request is typically made up of 1 or more change tasks. There are some types of change requests. You are seeing customizing change request, workbench change request, transportable change request, and local change request. What is customizing change request? The use of record only client dependent changes using IMG. Okay, and after completion of customization, the changes can be transferred to other R/3 systems. So to manage the customizing change request, we use the transaction SE10. So for customizing change request, you use the transaction SE10. But who are doing the customization? Functional consultants are doing the customizing request. Okay. Now, workbench request is used for client independent cross-client customization objects and all repository objects created or maintained through the ABAP workbench. What is the transaction code we use for workbench? SE09. And similarly, transportable change request, nothing but the change request which are transported to other R/3 system after release. And there is no transaction code for that. And lastly, local change request. So a change to an R/3 repository object in a development system but not transportable to quality or production system will be recorded to a local change request. So local change request can be released but not transportable. So I hope you understand this, the concept of transport management system. As I said, like customizing change request, you need to use the transaction SC10, and for workbench you have to use SE09. Okay, so in our next session we will be learning about the transport directory and how we perform the import and other kind of transports related. Thank you so much. So as we have seen in our previous topic about the concept of TMS, water transport layer, transport routes, water conservation routes, and we have also seen delivery routes, how it has been configured in transport management system, and what are the type of change requests. Okay, so now we are going ahead more with the transport management system. So today we are going to learn about transport directory, the concept of transport directory. Okay, and we'll see how the transport request will be imported to quality, and we also seen configuring transport domain, and we are learning about TPR3 trans and TP program. So when I'm talking about transport directory is a file system located on OS level where the objects in change request that were released and exported from the R/3 systems are physically copied so that they can subsequently be imported to a target R/3 system. So where is the transport directory you can find? You can find at the OS level. If you go at the OS level, my computer, the drive where your SAP is installed, and SAP, and here you can see the trans directory. So this is what I was talking about. This is a transport directory, which is a file system located on operating system level, where all the objects in the change request that were released will show. So often in a system landscape there is only one common transport directory. Okay, so all R/3 systems that share the same transport directory make up a transport group. So let me show you with an example. This is your quality development, quality and production, and this is your common transport directory, and production will have its own private transport directory. So this is your development, this is your quality, and this is your production. So this is your common transport directory. And this is your private transport directory. Okay, so this is in one transport group, and this is in another transport group. So let's say this is transport group 1 and this is your transport group 2. Okay, so as I told, like all the R3 systems that share the same transport directory make a transport group. So these both are sharing the same directory. Okay, so they will share this transport directory, and this production is sharing its own private common transport directory, and whatever the transport requests are importing or importing to the production. So that's why only one delivery route will exist between your quality and production. Okay, so if the transport directory is not shared with other system, then it is called the private transport directory. Okay, now as I was showing you the directory of transport directory, let me explain about each and every part of the directory. So the first thing, here is the bin directory. What is the bin directory? This directory contains tp underscore domain underscore pfl. This is a file which is the mainly transport parameter file. Usually asked in the interview question, that's why I am focusing more. So they will ask which is the transport parameter file, where it is located. So it's very simple. It's located under USR, SAP, under the trans you will find the bin, under the bin you will find this parameter file. Okay, so next subdirectory is data. This directory usually contains actual data file of the related change request with the customizing and development changes. So whatever the development changes and customization changes done, it will show in your data file. Okay, so that's why if you see there are two files, one is a data file and another is a core file. Core file, nothing but this directory contains control files or change request information files used by the transport tool on the OS level. And also we've seen there a buffer. Okay, so buffer, so if you see in the bin you can find that domain, this is a TP domain NSP parameter file. Okay, and the data file you will see that what are the requests the users release, it will show here. Okay, and the core file, it will show what are the requests have been released. Okay, and the buffer. What is the buffer? This directory usually contains an import buffer for each R3 systems in a transport group, which contains the information of which change requests are to be imported in which system. So when you are importing the transport request, you need to know which system you are going to import the transport request. There is a log directory. This directory contains all types of log files about the export, import of change requests. So if any error occurs, right, you have to go to this directory and you can figure it out what exactly the error is. So this is very important directory. Similarly, if you see the EPS directory, this is this directory stores, contains all patches. When you download the patches from the service marketplace, this is the directly where you download all your patches in this directory, and from there you will apply the patches at the front end level in the SAP. So this is very important concept which I am showing you the directory. So as I told, the transport directory basically is a very important to know what are the whatever the information. When you configure the TMS, it creates users and all other parameters, when you configure the transport management system. Then when we are talking about performing import, what exactly the performing imports? Imports are normally not performed by the developer who requested an export, but by the system administrator. So for import, the administrator must log onto the operating system of a host in the target system as a user, SAP SID ADM. So in the SAP system, there are two background events that are triggered by TP at the beginning and one at the end of an import with TP import. Okay, so we are going to learn what is TP. Now, route of a request into target system. Now you want to see how the transport requests are moving from development to quality and to production, and how the route. So there are some few steps here. Like first is that the transport of a request begins when the owner of the request releases. So once the owner of that request release, then the transport of a request begins here. Okay, he will release in which system? Development system. Second, after he release, after the transport gets released from the development, it is unlocked and the data is exported to OS level. Okay, then once the data is exported to OS level, what will happen? TP registers that the request has to be imported into target system, which is your production system. Okay, then what you will do, you will perform the import. You will perform the import to the target system. From target system, once you go to production, this you have to import using the transaction STMS. Then the object lastly will transfer to the target system. Okay, so this is a flow of a route when the transport request release, how it's going to the quality and how it's getting import into the target system. Now, when I'm talking about the transport domain, whenever SAP, once the SAP installation is done, as I told that you have to configure the transport domain. Okay, this is one of the post installation activities. So using STMS, once you go with the 000 client with user DDIC, when you enter STMS transaction code, it will say whether you want to create the configure the transport domain for the server. Then you have to say yes, and there you will going to configure the transport domain controller. So now we will see how are we going to create the transport and how we are going to release it to the development and quality. But before that, I missed one point, that is TP. So what is TP? It is actually a transport control program. It is a utility to transport objects between the SAP system and upgrading the SAP release. TP is called by the other programs like CTS, as I told, TMS and R3 up while doing the upgrade. What about R3 trans? R3 trans is nothing but this is a SAP program uses to transport data between the SAP systems and the migration between the this is TP param. Okay, TP param is a global parameter file used by the TP and administered by SAP TMS. For each transport group, there are one transport profile. The transport profile contains the settings needed to configure the transport control program TP and R3 trans. So this is very, very important. As I told, like this, understand until you don't know the concept, then doing the practical will become very difficult for any basis consultants. So let me move to the TMS. So already I have shown that STMS is a transaction code used for configuring the transport management system. So here if you go and see overview and transport routes, you can see those systems, 3 system landscape. So NSP is our development and quality and production systems. Okay. Now how we are going to create a request? Okay. Let us create one request and we'll release it and we'll see what happens and how it gets imported into quality system. Now to create a request, as I explained, that SC10 is the transaction code for creating a customizing, and SC09 for workbench request. Let us create one request. So already the user is John. Okay. So I will be going to create a workbench request. Click on the create button. Select the workbench request and hit right check mark. Now here it's asking what kind of change request are you going to describe. So as I told, like this kind of change request will be done by the functional consultant, okay, and developers, they will create the request and task. You as the basis person only need to import from quality to production and production client. So that's why, but since we doesn't have any request, but for the sake of knowledge, I'm creating a sample test. Okay, so let's say test workbench request, and the target is quality because we are moving the transport request from development to quality. So once you hit save, it came with the two transport number. So the transport number is, if you see, it starts with the SID and K9 and the last 5-digit number. So always you remember that transport request number contains 10, which includes the characters and digits. Okay, so the first, always it starts with the development, because whichever is the domain controller, that it starts with that SID. As I said, NSP is our development server, so it is NSP K9 and the 5-digit number 00014. When I created one transport request, then what is that 15? So whenever I create any workbench request or customizing change request, a request and task will be automatically created. Okay, so once it's created, it's given a name, okay, by the user John. Now when you provide this task to any user, so what are the users? So what will developer will do? He will create one workbench request and he will assign this number to the functional consultant. Functional consultant, since he will provide this transport request task number to FI guy or SD person or any other functional consultant to start their work in the IMG. So the functional consultant will start doing the configuration in this transport request task. So once the functional consultant completed their task, they will go and release this transport request task. How they are going to release? Yes, they will just click on this and you need to say release directly. So once you click on release directly, so I'm getting an error, let me see. Okay, so the let me go back. Let me create one customizing request. This kind of errors occurs because you have to understand why this issue is coming. Okay, let me take an example, customizing request test, and save yes. And if I go, so here, so I have created two requests here, 017, and so you will see like this. Let me go and release this directly. It's saying has been released request 0. See, now the request has been released. Okay, so if you right click and click on release directly, so the request has been released. The task has been released. So once the task has been released, what that functional consultant will do, he will give this task number to the owner of the transport request, saying that we have released the task, then please go ahead and release the request. So what the owner of that request will do, he will go and release that transport request. So once he releases the transport request, so this transport number will go and import into the quality server. So let's go and see whether it has been imported or not. So how to check? You have to go to STMS, okay, and then you have to go to overview and click on imports. So once you click on imports, refresh here, okay, and see in the QS the transport number which you have released appear in the quality server. So this is how in the real environment you will see the transport request is imported into quality. Similarly, from here, once it came here, it will also be appear in your development server. So how you are going to see this transport request number? You can go into the co-file data file directly to see whether this transport request number is there or not. So if you go to co-file, yes, it's there in co-file, and it should be in the data file too. Yes, it's in the data file. So this is how the transport requests are generated in the directory. So I hope you understand the concept of how the transport requests being imported from development to quality, and from quality it will get imported into the production the same way. So thank you so much for attending this topic. We will continue with the next session.